so let's just dive right in. When you think of cyberpunk, you probably picture these neon-drenched streets, flying cars, maybe some rogue AI, right? But what if the most important lesson from all that sci-fi grit isn't about the tech itself, but what that tech does to our privacy? Today, we're going to unpack how this genre is basically a playbook for the digital world we're all living in right now.
I mean, these are way more than just titles. They're visions. They painted these incredibly detailed pictures of a future where data tracking, biometric surveillance, and targeted manipulation were just normal. And they did it decades before our privacy laws even started to try and catch up.
And that really is the central question for us today. Are these stories just some spooky cautionary tales? Or can we actually use them as strategic guides to defend our privacy here in the 21st century?
Okay, so here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by seeing how fiction has really bled into our reality. Then, we're going to break down 3 huge lessons from the genre: default surveillance, identity being used as currency, and the role of the data villains. And then, we'll get into how to design a defense and wrap up with a big call to action. So, first up, how fiction is becoming fact. You know, the line between some dystopian story and our actual daily lives, it's getting really, really blurry. Things that used to seem totally out there, like constant tracking or biometric scans for everything, they're not sci-fi anymore. They're just another Tuesday. This is the world Cyberpunk warned us about. And that reality leads us straight to our first and maybe the most critical lesson from the Cyberpunk playbook. You have to assume you're being watched. In these worlds, the fundamental idea is that privacy is not the default, surveillance is.
Just think about it for a second. In pretty much any cyberpunk story, who are the heroes? They're the ones who have to actively fight for any shred of anonymity. They're using cloaking tech, burner IDs, or they're living completely off the grid. And why? Because the whole system is built from the ground up to watch everyone all the time.
And that trope, that's our reality now. We see it with facial recognition cameras everywhere, from airports to city streets. We see it in social credit systems being rolled out. And we definitely see it in the constant location tracking from the phones we all carry in our pockets. The surveillance net isn't coming. It's already here.
So here's the absolute crucial point for anyone building tech today. We have to flip the entire model. Privacy can't be some hidden setting you have to hunt for in a menu. It has to be the default setting. We've got to build our systems knowing that surveillance is the baseline, and then actively design things that push back against it.
And a huge part of how we do that is with something called PETs, or privacy-enhancing technologies. These are the tools, things like zero-knowledge proofs that can verify information without actually revealing the information itself, or differential privacy that lets you analyze data while keeping individuals anonymous. They build protection right into the system, making privacy the easy default choice.
All right, let's shift gears to our second lesson. And this one is just as unsettling, to be honest. In the world of cyberpunk, your identity, your thoughts, your body, your data, it's not really yours anymore. It's a commodity. I mean, from Ghost in the Shell to Altered Carbon, we see this theme pop up over and over again. Identity isn't this fixed, solid thing. It's modular. It can be copied, it can be sold, it can be stolen. Your digital ghost, your essence, is basically a marketable asset. Sound a little too familiar? Well, yeah. The rise of these scarily convincing deepfakes, the endless push for biometric authentication for everything from your phone to your bank, and the constant threat of identity fraud, it all shows that our digital selves are way more fragile and way more valuable than we ever thought. So the big takeaway here is that we have to start treating our digital identity like the incredibly valuable asset it is. This means we've got to push for new ideas, new frameworks, like self-sovereign identity, where you, not some random corporation, you control the keys to your own data, maybe keeping it safe in a personal encrypted digital vault. And now for our third lesson.
We often worry about government surveillance, and for good reason. But Cyberpunk is always there to remind us to look at the other major players in the game. These massive corporations and shadowy dealers who literally trade in our information.
In these stories, the real bad guys are often not some government agent in a trench coat. They're the black market info dealers and the corporate data brokers who get rich by manipulating our behavior. They know what you're going to buy, who you're going to vote for, and exactly what you're afraid of.
And this maps directly to our world. I mean, the multi-billion-dollar ad tech industry is a data brokerage. Our health data is being sold off to insurance companies. Political campaigns are using these creepy psychographic profiles to target voters with manipulative ads. The info dealers are real, and believe me, they are thriving.
So what's the defense against that? We have to demand radical transparency. It's not good enough for a company to just say what it does with your data. We need to be able to see the entire ecosystem, to map out every single third party that your data gets sold or shared with down the line.
Okay, so we have the lessons. Now, how do we actually pull them all together to build a real defense? Well, it's about shifting privacy from being just some legal checkbox you tick off at the end of a project to making it a core principle you start with from day one.
Over on the left, you see the problem, what I call deceptive consent. It's the pre-ticked cookie banners, the big, tempting accept all buttons, and the terms of service that are longer than a novel. It's basically surveillance disguised as a choice. But on the right, that's the solution. Privacy by design. This means making consent simple, clear, and super easy to take back. It means baking privacy right into the architecture of a system. And, most importantly, it means designing with human dignity in mind, not just trying to comply with some rule. And this brings us to our final, and honestly, the most important section. It is so easy to look at all of this and just feel kind of pessimistic, right? But that's missing the entire point of these stories. They are not predictions of a future that's set in stone. They are blueprints of a future we need to avoid. And that's the key right there. These dark, neon worlds, they're a warning. They are a powerful, vivid illustration of what happens when technology evolves without ethics, when we choose convenience over freedom every single time. Really, they're a challenge, showing us the exact future we will get if we don't actively start building something better. And so, for anyone working in this space, this becomes a really clear mission. Be the hacker, in the best sense of that word, the one who understands the system so well they can rebuild it ethically. Be the insider who has the courage to stand up and question the default settings. And be the designer who puts true, informed consent at the absolute heart of everything you create. Or, to put it in the language of the genre itself, resist the defaults, encrypt your data, and reclaim your digital life.